And we're live. You are watching Coaching Chats with Marina and Caroline.
I'm Marina Baranowski of the Coaching Marina.
And I am Caroline Day with Safe Data Change. How are you, my friend?
I'm well. How are you, my friend?
I'm great. My daughter is on a week away, sleepover camp. So I have all sorts of feelings happening this week, but I'm excited for her. It's definitely a little bit of a change, but as you know me, I love changes. I embrace them and I learn with them.
Because it's
And
always a safe day.
it's always a safe day to change for sure, to create a different perspective. How about you, my friend? How are you?
I'm doing well. I have my adult child move back in with us, and it's been great to have him home. So it's just that adjustment. Obviously, the dog is having an issue with it, but it'll she'll calm down. Yeah, I really am taking this January, this beginning of the year for some reflection and from um, just a really good reset
Hmm.
into going into 2026 and sitting with myself and meditating and journaling and just a lot of reflection. How about
What's
you?
a beautiful thing? Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm taking the entire January off social media. So I'm not on Instagram or TikTok or LinkedIn. And
We
I think
miss
it's been
you.
Thank you.
We
I
miss you.
kind of miss it, but I kind of don't because I feel like this was also for me kind of a reset. I wanted to make sure that I was really being intentional about what it is that I'm thinking about, that I'm presenting to people. And I have decided this month that I wanted to do a more intimate, private conversations as opposed to just trying to reach out to just about everyone, because obviously in social media, you're really just reaching out to everyone.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be more intentional about the people that I was helping and how I was going to do that this month. So I think it's been really, truly a present, a gift for me to have more time for writing, have more time for studying and researching, and just offering my coaching just at a different level this month. So it's been really great.
I love hearing that. I
Yeah. So
love
let's
that.
talk about today. So our topic today is failing.
Failure.
Yeah, failure is part of life, you know.
Yes,
So I think you had a definition there, so maybe we
I
should start there.
do. Okay, so the definition that was given to me is failure is generally defined as the lack of success in achieving a desired outcome or goal. At its core, it simply means an expectation was not met. That's
Okay,
it.
yeah, exactly.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
I love that because it doesn't come with any attachments.
Right.
It didn't say anything about being bad. It didn't say anything about being related to emotions.
Right.
Right? It just says you're not able to meet the endpoint that you have designed.
That you expected it. Right. So
You expected.
your expectation, not
Right.
the world's expectation, not the, it is your expectation
Yeah.
that was not met.
Yeah, I know. So how do you feel about the word failure?
In the past, failure was a harsh word. It was that I was incompetent, that I was lazy, that I was like unworthy, that I was like, wrong. There was these very negative connotation to the word failure. And it was almost like there was a finality to it. Like it was a failure.
Yeah.
And it cuts to the core that, and I had to change my way that I was thinking because I got back up. I may have failed at something, but I got back up or I changed a direction. So I had to change the way I thought about it because maybe what I was trying or what my expectation was not aligned to me.
Mm,
Maybe it was something that um, my expectations were really high about something, but the goal or the meaning or the soul behind what it was I was doing wasn't aligned. So I had to change it.
yeah. No, and that makes sense because again, failure is also the inability to um, comply, right? So, for example, you can fail at an exam, right? We learn very early in life that, you take these tests at school. You either pass or you fail, right? Or what's considered failing to some people versus other people, right? So it starts very young, right? Like if your parents tell you to do something, you don't do them, then you failed to comply with their rules, right?
Right.
And then there's all of these rules and regulations, obviously, that are established by society that if you don't meet them, you're also failing, right? And so that in itself impose a perception upon you on what failure is or isn't, right? Because the way that the failure is presented to you will play a huge role, right? One thing that I love to mention when it comes to failure is the story by Sarah Blakely, the founder of spandex, because, and I know a lot of listeners might already know this story. I love it
Tell it.
personally because as she was growing up, when she was a little girl, her dad wanted her to tell him a story of how she failed at school every single day. And so he almost like expected of her to come from school and tell him something she failed at. And she didn't understand that at the time. She actually felt like, why is he doing that? Right. And one day she came in and he asked, so what did you fail at today? And she said, oh, nothing. And he goes, nothing. And he almost looked disappointed. And so the next day she went to school and she tried something new so she could fail, so she could tell her dad, oh, I tried this and I failed. And he would say, congratulations. And it turned out that what he was trying to teach her is the ability to fail and not be influenced by bad thoughts or not being influenced by the weight of failure. He was trying to demonstrate to her that failure is actually a good thing to do. It's good to try new things. The message that he was trying to teach was if you're not failing, you're not trying. And
Love
so
that.
that really changed for her because she was like, okay, now I got to try more things because if I'm not trying, that means I'm not going to fail. That means I'm not trying anything. So I think that that's such a good story to start,
It's
right?
such a great story to start. Thank you for sharing that. I love that so much.
Yeah.
This by starting as a child, and this is where the programming comes in, our own personal definition of failure comes from how we experienced failure growing up and how it was framed for us growing up. So let's start with, you're taking a test and you fail that test. There's an end to that. You can't take the test again. You can't do a makeup, and you feel um, less than,
Mm,
especially when you're passing around that test and that test shows, the person next to you got an A plus, and you're like, well, that person's better than me, when that's not the case. So there's something that wasn't learned in the lesson that you were being tested.
yeah. I
That's
love what
real.
you said because you said two things, right? So, first, and that happens to all of us as
Right.
human beings, right? When we fail, we don't tell ourselves the story that we failed something. We immediately connect to our value.
Right.
We don't say we failed the test. We say we failed.
Yeah.
I failed the
I
test,
felt it.
not this test, it was failed by me, or you know what I mean? We don't say it like that. We say, I failed. I failed to do good. And so you immediately attach it to yourself because you said, I feel less than. Immediately, as soon as you fail
Immediately,
the
I
test,
am less
oh,
than. Yes.
I am less than.
Yep.
And then you look to your right, and then somebody got an A plus, and now you're also comparing. This is what it means to be good. This is what it means not to fail. They must be better than me because they didn't fail and I did.
Right.
Great example.
And because we're tying worth, to the performance. We're tying, success, equaled approval, like that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, that's what we carry through.
No, hold on. We got to stop there because that's beautiful. Okay, so
What part?
remember, the definition was failure, right?
Yeah,
Is the lack of success or lack of achieving success. But
yeah,
you just said we attach success to worth.
yeah.
Mm, that was so good. I'm like, we can't pass
We
that
do.
because
We
it's
do,
true.
don't we? I mean, that's everything that we do. If we fail at it, that means that we're not worthy of whatever it was that we expected to happen. And that is not the case at all. It could mean so many things, but like that is it hits me too.
Yeah.
Because when you're considering all the things, when you do your little review of life and you're like, okay, well, if I did this and this and this, maybe I would have succeeded, but I failed because I wasn't good enough at that, or I didn't do a good enough job, or, you know,
Yeah. And we didn't have Sarah's dad, right?
no,
There
no, we
wasn't
did
nobody
not.
around to go, you failed. Good job. That's amazing. That means you tried. There wasn't, that's not really the reality of many people.
Right.
Because if you grew up in a perception where failure is totally okay, then that's fine. But that's just not some of our cases, right? We
Yeah, I
grow
mean, her dad took on this thing where, failure is living, failure is experiencing. Failure is where you learn your lessons. And I love that. I love that he did that for her.
Yeah. And we can do that now, right? Like
Absolutely can.
listening to it, we're like, okay, maybe, failure doesn't have to be connected to worth at all. In fact, it doesn't,
It
right?
doesn't, right? I mean, based on the definition, if we're looking at what the definition of failure is, it just means that we did not meet that self-imposed expectation.
Mhm. And I think when we grow up, I think it just changes, right? Success changes. When as a child, success means getting good grades.
Right.
Success means you're listening to your parents. Success means you passed a grade. And then when you grow up, obviously your definition of success changes,
Right.
right? As you get married, as you have relationships in general, when you go into, college or you
It's
get your
that darn
first
checklist
job.
again, rearing its head. You gotta click all those boxes.
Exactly. And then your definition of success is getting a promotion. Your definition of success is being able to pay the bills. Your success is, you know, getting married and having a child. That's success, right? And I know, do you have any stories about, or, of people or examples of how people feel about failure at this time?
Oh yeah, I mean, I speak to people about failure a lot, and some of the examples that I get is, I'm putting so much work into something, what I'm not getting the accolades, or I'm not getting paid what I think that I should be getting paid for the job that I'm doing. And it's all tied to that worth. I am not being valued in the way that I think that I should be valued. Ergo, that's a failure on
Mhm.
my part for not showing or doing enough for them to value me in that way. And it's turns into pain. It becomes a pain point that you're not uh, looking at yourself and all of the accolades that you did do, all the things and the time that's put in, all of the things that you've already accomplished in life become so small in your mind because you're viewing this one thing that you're like, if I do this, this is what's going to I'm going to be valued. If I am paid the right amount, if I am, given enough praise or accolades or something, that is what's going to make me feel better about all of this time that I'm putting into this thing.
Yeah. And is
And
that true? Like, what happens if you do get it?
of course, it's not true, but it takes the individual to look at it from a different perspective. The different perspective is, you know, one, for me, it's always being grateful for the experiences that are there. Maybe all of this work that you're putting into it right now is meant for something greater later on. You're just in a learning phase right now.
Mm.
It's not a failure per se, but maybe it's a standard that you want to adhere to, an expectation that you want to adhere to, and it's not being met. And you're using the word failure as your way to internalize it into this pain that you're feeling.
Yeah. I love that you said that because I took a class in 2020 when we were in lockdown through Coursera about the well-being. And we studied how um, humans, adults in particular, in general, they are happy to get more and more and more just up to a certain point. After that, it doesn't matter how much more you get. As soon as you get it, it's not interesting. It's not, what you think it's going to be amazing. Like if I get paid a little bit more, maybe I'll be happier. And then they get paid a little bit more and discover that they're not happier.
Right.
We have this illusion that more is better when in reality it isn't. And so when we're not getting there, we think that we're failing. But then when we do get there, it also feels like a failure because it doesn't feel the same as when you were just getting there. Because there is a threshold. I remember one of the thresholds was actually in terms of salary. There's a study that says that people that makes more than 75,000 a year, it doesn't make a difference in their level of happiness any more that they get after that point. And I thought that was very interesting.
That
That
is
if you go from
interesting.
120 to 130, it doesn't, you think that you are going to be happier, but he actually doesn't. And so I thought that that was very interesting.
That is very interesting. When you hit that threshold, regardless of what your goal is, you hit that threshold and you don't feel that sense of relief that you had anticipated, that in itself is a failure. So you're now compounding failure after failure in your head, and it just becomes larger and larger. And unfortunately, if a mindset shift isn't made at this point, you're going to continue this. This is exactly how you're going to continue. It doesn't matter how far you come. It doesn't matter how, much you get accomplished or attain in your goals. You're always going to view this as a failure.
Yeah. If you
So,
address it, right? Because it's like what you said in the beginning. If you start attaching it to your worth,
yeah,
right? This is what I'm worth. And then if I don't get this, then I'm not worthy of it. And that's when the closer you attach it to your identity,
yeah,
the harder it is for you to let go of because now it's part of your identity, right?
exactly.
I know we were talking about it earlier before we started, but there's a lot of that in relationships with family.
Yeah,
Family dynamics has a lot of that, between the parent and the kids and vice versa, where as the parents are growing older, there's this need, or we hear a lot of like, oh, you're not calling me, do you not love me anymore? And we talked a little bit about that because we feel less than when we attach ourselves to the idea or the stories that we're telling ourselves, we feel like a failure,
yeah,
you know, and then we create this identity about ourselves when it comes to the failure. It's almost like if nobody from my family's calling me, it means I'm not a good person. It means I failed at parenting because my kids are not calling me.
Right.
And then you create this identity that you are not worthy, that you did something wrong, where in fact it could be various things, and none of it likely related to what you're thinking. It could be that they're traveling, it could be that they're busy, that they're doing their things. It had nothing to do with the love that they have. But the minute that you attach your worth to the story of what's happening, the fact is just that nobody's calling, perhaps, right? That's just the fact. But then the story that you tell yourself, that's the one that really changes how you feel about yourself because
Right.
now you're attaching it to your identity. Like, this is a failure. I failed at something because they don't want to spend time with me. I failed at something because they're not calling me. And then there's also your assumption, right?
Right.
There's your assumption that comes with it and plays a huge role. Your opinion of it plays a huge role. Your perception of it plays a huge role. And so talk to me a little bit about that, Marina, because I know you have some
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I come from an Italian background. So guilt, and conversations, how come you hadn't called me? What's the matter? You don't love me, like this kind of mentality. And the thought is yeah, it could that person who is saying those things, they're taking it from their own pain and that they don't feel love, they don't feel attention, they don't feel value to you. So they're going to come off in that way. Instead of taking it as, uh, a guilt trip or something, I understand that, maybe they just mean, I miss you, and I want to spend time with you and I love you and I want, to see you more. Instead of saying those words, it comes out in a different way. And I had to really take a look at that myself within my own family dynamics and understand that they do, when I don't see my family for a long period of time, that they do miss me and they do love me and they do care. And it's not something that is personal directly to them. They're taking it personal that, whether it be that I don't speak to them for a long period of time or they don't come to an event, they're taking it very personally as a failure, that they're a bad parent, that they're a bad grandparent, that they're a bad, sibling, they're bad, whatever. Um, and that's really not the case. In the sense of my own situation, sometimes I don't speak to my own children for extended periods of time. And that's okay because I am not taking it as personal. I could, maybe I was a bad parent or I didn't do enough, to show how much I love them. Or how here's the other thing, it's like I am look how much I sacrificed from my kids, and they're going to not talk to me or they're not going to spend time with me. That's that's not how I take it. That's not how I take it anymore. What I take it is that each of my children has their own path. And I had a very short window of time, as them as children. And they're going to have their life. And I know each one of them loves me. I
Mm,
know that they do.
and also it goes back to the definition of failure. So the
Right.
definition of failure is the omission of expected action.
Right.
But if you don't expect it, then
Right.
it's not a failure
No,
because failure is the
great
omission of
point.
expected action.
Phenomenal point.
If
Exactly.
if you remove the expectation, it's no longer by definition a failure.
Right.
That's beautiful. I love that.
I
So
love
I
that too.
actually was reading Success Habits. I don't know if you can see it by Napoleon Hill, also the author of Think and Grow Rich. A lot of people know it. And I came across this section. I don't know if I'm going to find it live here, but in there, it's almost there. If I may, it's just one paragraph. It says there is a law of nature which provides that every adversity, every defeat, every setback, every failure, every heartache, every disagreeable circumstance that you may experience carries within itself the seed of an equivalent benefit. I think what I call it the silver lining, but there's more. So there's also another part, excuse me, that he says, and I quote, which I love. It's again very similar. He says, "Oh, says chances are, as strange as it may seem, that you use the tools that you have at hand, whatever they may be, that other or better tools will sometimes miraculously be placed at your service." So sometimes you feel like you're hopeless, like there's nothing else. I've explored all the options. And sometimes by chance, by miracle, whatever you want to call it, something appears. Then I'm just going to read one more because I thought that was
Please,
beautiful.
I love this.
If you fail today, the chances are you will have acquired something that will enable you not to fail tomorrow. Nature never takes anything away from anyone or allow anything to be taken away without giving to that person something of equivalent or greater value than it took in its place. What did you hear?
What I heard is pretty much how I view failure, which is that it is a nugget. It's a learning lesson. It's something that you take in, that one either wasn't aligned to you or that it wasn't something that was meant for your highest and best good. And maybe trying something sparks something else in you to go, you know, maybe if I didn't do it this way, but maybe if I did it this way, that'll work. And then when you try that and you keep trying, what was it like? Thomas Edison was like, it was 900 and something. I forgot what the quote was, right?
Of
How the
tries.
light bulb, like how many, mistakes he had to make in order to actually make it work. It's this perseverance. It's this, you have a set goal and you will try and try and try again in order for you to attain this thing. Sometimes it shifts, sometimes it changes, but it is something that if you don't try it, um, but even in the trying, I guess is what I'm hearing. Even in the trying, it is a lesson learned and that you won't do it again.
Yeah.
I love that.
Something else will appear when you
Yeah.
fail, is what I learned from this. When
Yeah.
you fail, something will show up.
Yes.
The information that what not works,
Well,
like what
right. And
doesn't work,
information of
shows
what not
up.
to do. Love it.
Right. And so that's the first information you get. You get the new ideas. You have to come up with now different ideas because the first one didn't work. And so now you almost like force yourself to think of other options because
Right.
that one failed, right? And when you are asking, right? In our case, the universe, the source, right? But other people, even when they're like praying, they're actually asking for a collection of different opinions, different ideas. And when you do that, that's when they show up,
Yeah.
is when you're willing to see what is available. What are the other options? What can I do here? And so failure is really a beautiful thing
Yeah.
because failure allows you to see what doesn't work. You can try again tomorrow, you know. It enables you to change. It enables you to start over. And it teaches you so much
So
about
much.
how you tried a first time. So I think that's beautiful.
What happens if people never try anything? Nothing,
Nothing.
right?
Yeah.
Nothing happens. You sit in the same place. You're stagnant. You don't move, and a lot of us are really afraid to make those steps, but reframing failure for yourself and being able to say, I'm going to try this. And if it doesn't go right, oh well, I'll try something else.
Yeah.
You know, that does not tie it to worth. It doesn't tie it to identity. It doesn't tie it to any emotion. Failure in itself should never be tied to an emotion.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Um, let's say that, I have a job and I have tasks to do in my job, and then I show up one day and they say, okay, now something else came up and I'm gonna give you extra assignment, right? Like, what would you say to that person if, they already have all of these feelings coming up, right? Oh my gosh, I already have my work and now you're piling up more work. What does that mean to me? Like, and then all of a sudden this person is thinking, you know, are they not valuing me? Like, am I not like, now I'm confused, or maybe now I start failing at my main task because more responsibility was put upon me. And now this person is feeling like a failure. Like, what would you say to that?
Well, I would I would first try to reframe this thing. I mean, ultimately, if they're giving you additional tasks to do,
Mhm.
that generally means that they trust you
Mm,
and that want to um, they want to see and test your mettle because they know that you could do it
yeah.
most
So
of the
you're
time.
capable. So
You're
that is
capable.
actually good information to
It's good
begin
information. You're capable of doing this, and they want to test you, and you know how you frame it is the most important thing.
with. Mhm.
So, if framing it that way, saying, "Okay, they want to see what I can do. I could do this," or maybe they're trying you out for something else. Maybe your current job or the things that you're doing right now, yeah, maybe a great start, but they've slotted you for something much greater.
Yeah. But that's all speculation, right? So let's
Yeah,
remove all of the assumptions that we may have about what's happening. And let's focus on the feeling of a person, right?
right.
Because
Okay.
it could be so many things, right? We
Yeah.
can speculate about the reasons,
Yeah.
but how do we frame it so that the person doesn't feel devalued because now they're not able to accomplish their goals?
Well, I mean, what are those goals, right? So let's just say it's a monetary
Hmm.
goal.
Yeah.
Okay. If it's a monetary goal and they want, and for them, they said, well, if I'm already doing the job that I'm doing. And I think by adding more to this job is going to add more value to me, that they will pay me more. This is all tied to self-worth and what you think that you're worth. So I would probably start asking what you're worth. Why is what you're worth and so important to you? And why are you framing it in a dollar amount?
Mm, that's beautiful because I love what you said. Sometimes it's monetary, but if you start asking about your worth as a person, it goes beyond the monetary value, right? And sometimes we do attach our ideas of success into the amount of money that we're getting,
Right.
especially in work
Right. Yeah.
circumstances, right? Professional circumstances. But I love that because it's not just the monetary value, you're not accounting for the actual work that you do and how great you do the work that you do, which is why you're chosen, for example. I
Right.
love that. That's a great one. So let's think about other example. For like I remember a cousin of mine, she tried to pass an exam 5 times in a row and she failed. She really wanted to go into medicine, but she was never able to get into the school that she wanted to. And she tried 5 times and she failed 5 times. And she just was really attached. Like, if this was your client, what do you think the questions would be for them?
I want to frame what the importance of this job is to her,
Mm,
or trying to attain that goal for her. What is the importance? What does being a doctor mean to her? Why? because the test in itself should be an indication to her that maybe there isn't an alignment. Maybe there isn't the passion that you think is there. So I would start first all is framing that. Tell me what it is that
Hmm.
becoming a doctor means to you. Sometimes it could be about worth. Sometimes it could be about status, or that, that's the level of a definition of success that that person has. So it really from that person's point of view, this drive to want to become a doctor, the testing piece of it is just a message. It's just an indication. It is like it's just a little piece of knowledge,
Yeah, information for
a
sure.
little piece of information. That's all.
I love what you said about, asking
Mhm.
about status because it was a particular school that she wanted to go to. She
Yeah.
was very adamant about the school. And so I love that because it would be my question as well as to why is this school so important to you? Because she was accepted in every other school, but she wanted to pass in this particular school. And so it's very important for you to know what the meaning of it is.
Right.
And sometimes people do have this goal and they keep going, right? I know
Oh,
that
absolutely.
we have a Miss USA, and I can look it up, but there is a Miss USA that was found by a random person on the street, and she knew nothing about beauty pageant, and she was approached by this woman on the street, and she said, "You need to do this with me," and so she sponsored the girl, and she tried one time, did not get, to be Miss USA. She tried again, failed. She tried again, failed. And then she tried 8 times and failed. And then her sponsor passed away. And then 2 years later, she tried again and she became Miss USA.
Wow.
But she tried for years. I think it was 10 years altogether that she tried. And she was so upset at this woman at some point. She looked at this woman and said, "Why do you think I can win?
Yeah.
We've tried this multiple times, year after year. Why do you think that I could be Miss USA?" Like, because we've tried this like 6 times and we
Yeah.
failed. You are doing bad by me because you keep on putting me through this situation and I don't win. And I go through all of the training and all of this, and then I lose.
Yeah.
And she's becoming frustrated. But what I love about this story is that the person who saw her saw something in her and believed wholeheartedly that she could become Miss USA. There's something in her that she truly believed. And that's the part of it that we don't talk about is when you do have this very strong belief in something,
Yeah.
failure becomes nothing.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean if you try and it doesn't work, because that's not what success is.
Right.
Success sometimes is not the failure or lack of it. Sometimes success can actually become not giving up, not believing.
Absolutely.
Maybe
Absolutely.
success is persistence,
I
you
love
know.
that that person, she took that belief system that was not her own and was like, I'm going to do this because this person believed in me. And I'm going to keep forging forward because this person believed in me and succeeded. This failure versus like quitting, right? There's a failure. They're like, we're gonna quit. That's it. I failed once or I failed twice, and that's it. I'm gonna quit. When you have this belief system that you are meant for something or that you want to do something so much that it doesn't matter what's around you. It doesn't matter what you're being told. It doesn't mean, I think it was like Oprah Winfrey. Something was like someone told her that, what's the point, of trying to go into into TV and stuff like that. Or I think she was trying to become a newscaster or something like that, right?
She was,
And she was like, forget it. There's no point in it. You're not going to be successful. And she took that rejection as, okay, that's one rejection. I'll keep moving. And rejection after rejection. And that this is like a master class, right? In rejection, because look how amazingly successful that she became because she was like, I believe this in me. I believe that I am destined or I want to do this so much that it doesn't matter what's around me. So by taking the word failure as this is just a lesson or this is just an indication that this is not the road I want to be on, maybe I'll just go to the next road that's right next to it. You
Hmm.
know, maybe that there's a shift that I need to make in order to be the success. It's just trying it once, for the most part and quitting. Who knows what would have spawned if you kept moving forward. I like that little analogy of that person like digging the hole. Like, and here's the goal, right? And like you see like them digging, 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 and right before the success mark, they're like, forget it, I'm done. And then they walk away. Like that is what I see. And that's what I whenever I want a goal or I'm setting myself forward on something, that even the failure of not reaching that goal and each dig each thing, I'm still moving forward towards that goal even though I might have changed a direction. I'm still moving towards that goal, and I'm just not going to stop.
Yeah, I love that. And
Yeah.
there's also a different perspective. I don't know if you've heard. I think
I
it was
love
Tony
perspective.
Robbins.
Yeah.
I think it was Tony Robbins that said, but he was quoting someone else, that he said, if you knew, like it's for sales, if you knew that the 10th person that you would talk to,
Yeah.
you would be able to sell something to them, and that wouldn't you be excited to fail 9 times? Wouldn't you be so excited to get 9 no's if you knew that the 10th one
Yeah.
would be a yes? Then you would say it faster because you would be
Yeah.
like, if you were guaranteed that the 10th one was a yes, wouldn't you be excited for the 9 no's?
Yeah.
You know? And that's completely a different perspective on failure. It means you
I love
fail.
that.
Yeah, like I'm almost there. I failed again. Oh, I'm almost there. That means
Yeah.
I'm just so much closer because I got all these no's and I know that, there's a yes coming.
I love it. It's like, failure, it's not an incompetence. It's not like you're doing something wrong. It's just that you keep trying and you keep going, you keep going. Like I said, if you know for a fact that you're eventually going to get to that yes, you're excited to get through the no's. You're like, okay, come on, tell me no, because I want to get to I want to get to the yes. I love that. I think that it's a fantastic way to the mindset on that.
It really is. So you said in the beginning that for you, failure used to be not being able to accomplish something,
Yeah.
uh, failing.
Um, I mean, this is generational, and it might carry through. I mean, like I can only talk to, to how I was brought up, but I mean, failure was a huge negative mark, whether it be, like I said, it was in school, on a test. It was a huge negative mark on myself, and it could have been because people were disappointed in me because they knew that I could do better. I didn't think that I could do better. They thought I
Mhm.
could do better. It doesn't matter. I failed or I got a poor grade or I attempted something that I thought was very exciting and I failed at it and I got a told you so.
Mm.
And in that told you so, I had to make a decision whether I was going to keep forging forward or if I was going to go in a different direction. And more likely times than not, because I've already had a negative connotation towards what it was that I was doing, I would try something different or I'd go in a different direction. I wouldn't forge forward, even if I loved it, even if I wanted it so bad. That
Because you
negative,
believed what was told about that. So somebody else created a story and you just believed it. You
believed
took
it,
it and you ran with it.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
But
from
that's
my
very
perspective,
relatable, though. That's
yeah,
very relatable. I see, like I can totally see how people can do that. Like somebody will tell you a story, say, don't do it, or you will fail. And then you fail and they go, I told you so, which really emphasizes the story that you are a failure and
right.
not the thing failed.
So there's that expectation, whether it be from a parent or, basically anyone, there's an expectation of you.
Yeah.
For example, if you're in your 20s and you haven't gotten married yet, that's your failure.
Hmm.
Why is that? That's not my personal failure, but it's everyone else's failure around me. And what if I never, if in personally, I never wanted to get married? I'm not saying me personally, I always wanted to get married, but like, I mean, but what if you didn't? And that was your truth,
Hmm.
right? And you have this expectation coming around from everyone else,
Right.
saying that this is a personal failure on you. And it's up to you as an individual to
Yeah.
not take it as a failure. It's
Yeah,
not.
that's their story, not your
It's
story.
their story, not yours.
Right. Or living alone.
Living
There's
alone,
a
yeah,
lot of people that live
that's a
alone
big
and they're
one.
like, oh, poor person, like they failed in life, and maybe they're happier than you.
Right.
That's an entire
Why do you
family.
have to? Why do
Yeah.
you have to be living with someone? What if someone is very happy being by themselves?
Right.
This is their own story, their own path, their own way of moving about this earth,
Yeah.
and for you as an individual, you have to forge that on your own. This level of failure, this worth that's associated, this identity that's associated to it, it's not a failure if it's something that you wanted to do.
Yeah. And you're trying.
You're trying,
That means you're
you're
trying,
doing it,
right? You're living.
you're
If
living.
if you're feeling,
Right.
you're just simply living. Because
That's
like
it.
you asked earlier, like what happens if I don't try?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Nothing.
That's why you said earlier, right? And
Nothing
it's
happens.
nothing happens if you're not trying. You're not really living,
Right.
you know. And I love what you said about, like what people say and the stories that they tell us, and how we really believe them, and it's even harder in a family um, construct. In a family dynamic is even harder because we look up to those people. We
Right.
love them so dearly. And so they must be telling us the truth.
Right.
And it is a truth, but it's just not your truth. It's
Right.
their truth, right? And so they believe that in the first place. It's not like they're trying to tell you a story, maliciously. It's really their story.
Yeah,
They're
you must not be happy if you're not married with children. You must
right.
not be happy,
Yeah. Because I
if you,
wouldn't be. The truth is
right, right, I wouldn't
wouldn't
be
be.
happy. Right,
Yeah, I
exactly.
wouldn't be happy, so therefore you're not going to be happy, you know.
Meanwhile, you're living your best life, waking up when you want to, you drink. I mean, whatever your your framing is, I unfortunately, again, Italian. That weighs heavy.
Yeah.
It weighs very, very heavy.
Yeah.
You have to do things, in a certain way, or else, there's no way for you to be happy. This is the definition of happiness. And
Right.
you look around and everyone is not quite happy. Like if this is happy, I don't want it. You're like, what's happening? You decide what it is that you want.
Yeah.
So try living alone for a year. You don't like it? Try something else. Try, being by yourself or trying a relationship and it didn't work. No problem. Moving it on. Like so you choose what it is that your definition of failure is. A failure and when I had to redefine failure for myself, failure to me was not an end point. Failure only became a thing if I didn't continue to try. It was important to me that I got back up. If I failed something, I would get back up and I would try something else. Only then my failure wasn't a failure. As long
Mhm.
as I keep going.
Yeah. I love that because, according to the definition on the dictionary, right? So if it's a lack of success, I think you are right when it comes to your example with the family is sometimes success is equated to happiness, right? And so failure is not achieving success.
Right.
And if you make it equivalent to it's not achieving happiness, then now you're selling your idea of happiness upon other people.
Yeah.
Or and happiness is different for everyone,
Right.
right? And I think because of that, because we're changing, it's almost like we want to also change the definition of failure. Because the moment that we change the definition of failure, then anything can happen too, right? So it's not the lack of success anymore, it's the lack of happiness. In fact, it's the lack of your idea of happiness. And when it becomes the lack of your idea of happiness, then you know for sure that you're failing, or you believe for sure that you're failing because I'm not achieving their idea of happiness. Therefore, I'm failing. But
And
that's
I'm
not the
less than.
definition.
And I'm
That's not,
not, right? I'm less than, and then I'm not, I'm not living, then I'm not happy, right? I
yeah.
mean, this is that all of these emotions that really belong in very separate buckets are all being tied into this one thing. So thank you for like tying it all together like that, because that's essentially it. You are feeling that you have failed something, whatever that might be, and you start this spiral down into, I'm not worth it. I didn't do enough. I'm the one that's the problem, in this really, this terrible, shame spiral
Yeah.
that
And
happens.
sometimes let's talk about the other version too. Sometimes it's not any what anybody sold you, it's what you truly intrinsically wanted.
Right.
I'll give you an example. There are people that actually wants to get married and have
Yeah,
a child.
absolutely.
And then they find themselves at 45 single and not having a child.
Right.
But they really wanted that. It's not somebody else's dream, it's their own dream that didn't happen for them.
Right.
And that's a reality also.
Absolutely.
When
It's a
people
reality.
actually want something, they desire something and they didn't get it. And that is a failure to them because they didn't achieve the success that they thought they would.
Right.
So how do they handle that?
And again, this is a matter of asking some questions. What does a family and marriage and children, what would that do for you? Like what would make you, what would be the core emotion that you would want to have
Mhm.
when experiencing that? What were you trying to experience
Mhm.
being a wife and a mother? What is that you're trying to accomplish? Sometimes it's, being a part of something that's your own. Sometimes it is, well, then I'll be loved. Sometimes it is, uh, being able to right things wrong, if you will. So what it is that that person is trying to obtain by having a family and all, honestly, having a family and children and stuff is a wonderful goal to have. And if it doesn't happen for you, how can you rewrite those definitions? What does a family look like to you?
Mm.
Could it be your circle of friends? Could it be, the people that you choose to spend your time with, that you get this unconditional love from? Does it have to really equate to having a husband and having children? Why are we limiting this? Where can we get the same emotion and feeling from if it isn't with a husband and children?
Mhm. Oh, I
So
love that. That's
yeah,
true because not only do we have the idea that family is one thing and one thing only, and if a person is so fixated on the idea of having a husband and a child with that husband, then they lose all of the other options, right?
yeah,
They tie themselves to an ideal, but that makes them lose them all of the options, right? The options of adopting, the options, of still finding love later on in life.
absolutely.
There's this like, I'm too old, I'm never going to find somebody because they sold the idea that you are successful at finding a husband if you find it before your 30s.
Yeah,
And so there's all of this idea that we have to like debunk and challenge really
absolutely.
to understand why they're at where they are and could they open their possibilities and their perspective where there is happiness in some other ways of living, right? It's about what you said about how do you want to feel once you do have that?
Yeah,
Well, do you think you can achieve that with a different set of circumstances and achieve
exactly.
the same feeling? I love that.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
beautiful. So much wisdom coming from you today.
And from you too, darling.
Joel. I love this conversation. I mean, there's so much more that we could talk
It's
about, right?
very
Because
true.
failure, but I think we touched on really good points. We have to really remember what the definition is. It's
Yeah.
not attached to happiness. It doesn't say anything about happiness. It doesn't say anything
No.
about good and bad. It's really just failing to achieve a goal or achieve success. And
Or the
success,
expectation of something.
and it can be anything.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's important
Yeah.
for us to reframe that and see what
Absolutely.
happens when somebody already lives with that, right? Like Sarah Blakely. Like, if that resonated with you, you have the chance to raise your own children in the same aspect with the same perspective of failure, feeling like it's an opportunity from them to learn and being explorers and finding their ways through exploration and creativity. So I love that.
Failure is life,
Failure is life.
isn't
It's
it?
a beautiful thing. And it's through failure that you find that gold, right?
You
It's
find the
failure.
right thing. You
It's
know,
that you
how many people have failed marriages only to have a wonderful marriage the second time around?
you can attest to
I
that.
certainly can. But I mean, like that's what I mean. Like you having a failed business. Okay, I won't do that again. I'm going to try something else, and that's successful. There's story upon story. If you didn't try it to begin with, you're never going to get to how it is supposed to be.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah. And I think also the idea of failure in general is so negative that people don't want to say it. I love how you said it so openly, like the failed of marriage the first time, and some people would immediately go, oh, it wasn't really a failure. You had two children, like trying to like patch it because we see it in such a poor light that people try to patch it or reason
No,
with
that was a
it,
failure.
you
Straight up.
know. But
Yeah.
it's not, right? Like it's like, no, that was a failure because it didn't work
And
and it
an
wasn't the definition.
incredible learned experience.
Exactly. And you had an idea of success then. You really
Yeah,
did. That's why that happened in the first place.
right.
And then you change your perspective of success. And therefore, that had to change because your idea of success and even his idea of success was no longer the same
Exactly.
or not being met. Therefore, failure. But now you have a marriage where you did choose, and now you have your own idea of success, and you can meet that because now you
Yes,
know more of what success means to you, especially in a
absolutely.
relationship.
I love this. But and again, it is so beautiful that we framed it in this way. And, I'm looking forward to failing with you.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Likewise, I am looking forward to failing with you.
Enjoy it.
Well, I will see you next time.
Yes, you will.
And I love you. I'll see you
Love you.
guys next week.
Yeah.
Bye.